Hello all. Today, in our concluding presentation after the Poshan Maah, we are raising a concept of moving towards a Kuposhan Mukt Bharat through a fourfold strategy for the consideration of the viewers. We'll also be looking at some of the best performing districts and some of the lowest performing districts in a slightly different light with respect to the three facets of malnutrition, that is underweight, stunting and wasting. What is this fourfold approach that one is talking about? It's one possible approach. We describe it in terms of cryptic sutras, and the four sutras are: first is Lagan, the approach. At the beginning of the Poshan Maah, we had presented a small documentary, which was the cricket match against malnutrition. There we had actually elaborated this approach, that removing malnutrition is a team game and each player needs to perform. The opening pair, in fact, is health. Nutrition comes one down. And there are various other nuances which we had brought out. You could go to our IITB nutrition group.in site and go through the small brief on the Lagan approach. But essentially, removing malnutrition is like chasing a particular target in given overs. The target may be difficult or not so difficult depending upon the terrain that you have. The second sutra that we would submit for your consideration is Kamjor Kadi Kaun. Now, some of you may be remembering this old serial, Kamjor Kadi Kaun, but the message that one is giving through Kamjor Kadi Kaun, the analysis, is that a chain breaks at its weakest link. So we should identify the weak links and we should fix the weak links. For example, now it is well known that dietary diversity and dietary adequacy are weak links. Effective breastfeeding is a weak link. So we need to identify them and fix those. The third sutra is Antyodaya, the priority. When we are talking in terms of removing child malnutrition, the last mile or the most vulnerable should be our priority. Otherwise, there's a possibility that they may be left out. But at the same time, we should also pursue the dream of Kuposhan Mukt. And there what we should do, we should focus on areas which are closest to the goalpost. And while we pay attention to the most vulnerable, we also take these areas towards the goal of becoming Kuposhan Mukt. We can begin from very basic units. We can't have a state Kuposhan Mukt overnight. It has to be preceded by a Kuposhan Mukt district, which has to be preceded by a Kuposhan Mukt project, a circle or a supervisor beat, and an Anganwadi center. So we could try that. While we are making this suggestion, we'll also take you through an interesting graphic in terms of how do we move towards this Kuposhan Mukt Bharat. There are different ways of looking at a problem, and we will compare the nutritional profile of children vis-a-vis the WHO reference curve. And this is something which we had done earlier in respect of a couple of districts and presented this. And we will see how few best performing districts and some underperforming ones compare vis-a-vis the WHO reference curve in terms of underweight, in terms of stunting, in terms of wasting. and also severe wasting. Some of the viewers may recall this description in the context of the Jhajjar district and Kanyakumari district. Jhajjar in Haryana and Kanyakumari in Tamil Nadu. We will present a few more examples today for your consideration to elaborate that point a little further. So what we have done is we have taken 2-3 best performing districts from large states, small states, just so as to be representative. Now the graphics that you are seeing on your screen is a little technical, but it will be adequate to appreciate that the green curve that we are seeing is the WHO representative curve. If the red curve, the bell curve, and we have elaborated this earlier also, that these are in shape of a bell curve. So if the red bell curve moves towards the right and goes flush with the green, I think we can more or less say that we have a malnutrition-free area, whether it is district, whether it is block, whether it is state, doesn't matter. So here you see that the district of Jhajjar, the district of Pathankot, and the district of Rudraprayag, there the red bell curve is, in terms of underweight, is fairly close to the WHO reference curve, but, and this but is very important, in all the 3 green curves, there is hardly any case which is on the -3. Now this -3 is the standard deviation from the mean. I don't want to complicate the narrative. It will be sufficient to understand that the mean is at 0. These are z-scores as they call it. On the right hand side, +1, +2, +3, +4. Left hand side, -1, -2, -3, -4. These units are standard deviation. So -1 standard deviation, -2 standard deviations, -3 standard deviations. But notice everywhere, and in subsequent slides also you will notice that below -3, the green curve shows hardly any cases. And that's the goal that we need to achieve. We'll elaborate it a bit further when we go to the lowest performing districts. Let us look at the smaller states. Here you see the South District, Lower Subansiri, Siang. And here you will notice again this red bell curve is fairly close to the green one. And in fact, the area to the left side of 3 sigma, 3 standard deviation, is very, very small number of cases. If we tackle them, we could move closer towards the green curve. So this is something which we need to achieve vis-a-vis what we have in some of the lowest performing districts. And you may see the title District 1, District 2, District 3. We have on purpose consciously decided not to name the districts because the idea is to elaborate the concept. And here you notice the gap between the red bell curve, which is also called the normal distribution curve, and the green curve. Look at a fairly large area or large number of cases beyond -3 sigma. It is this which has to be brought down to 0. We had purposely given an arrow mark so that you are able to differentiate or you are able to notice the area which is on the left side of 3 sigma. This has to come down to 0. That should be the goal. Is the story similar for stunting? Let us take a look. If we come to stunting, you see Jagat Singhpur in Orissa, you see Puri in Orissa, and you see Rupnagar. Now, all these 3, you would notice that the situation is not as happy as in the case of underweight. Here, the best performing areas also are having some gap between the green bell curve on the left-hand side and the red portion. And this is something which is required to be handled with a lot of perseverance, because removing stunting is a slow process, because stunting represents a cumulative effect, whereas wasting, for example, will represent episodal events in the recent past. So taking care of stunting will be problematic. But let us look at two more districts. Now Lower Dibang, you have Imphal West, and you have Vishnupur. Here again, they are among the best performing as far as stunting is concerned, but they fall fairly short of the requirements of going flush with the green curve. So this is something which we need to keep in mind, and you would have already anticipated what might be happening to the districts which are performing not so well. So we are taking a look again, District 1, District 2, District 3, these are different districts. It's not necessary that the underweight and the stunting, the underperforming districts will be same. So again, we are giving just name District 1, District 2, District 3. And you would notice that here not only 3 sigma, 4 sigma, 5 sigma, I mean the task, the enormity of the task is very clear from this graphic. And if any district wants to find out how are we doing in terms of stunting over a time period, you just have to draw these bell curves and find out how your movement is happening. So whether you are representing these better off districts or whether you are representing these worst performing districts is for everyone to judge. What happens in the case of wasting? In fact, in wasting, the gaps are not that disturbing. In fact, if you look at best performing districts, which are Ludhiana, Bhiwani, and Coimbatore, that's the representative examples that we have taken. So you will see in Ludhiana, for example, the gap between the green and the red bell curve on the minus sigma side is very, very narrow. So can Ludhiana really go whole hog and try to make it flush with the green curve, in fact even overtake it, and really say we are wasting free? Similar dream, probably Bhiwani can chase, though Bhiwani the task looks a little difficult. In the case of Ludhiana, you will notice that the mean has already entered inside the top of the bell curve and it looks fairly good. Whereas in Bhiwani and Coimbatore, the means are still shifted towards the left on the negative side. Let us look at some of the smaller states. Again, we are looking at the North District, the Aizawl and Mon, and you will see probably Aizawl is in a happy situation of becoming wasting free with little effort. The North District, which is Sikkim, you are seeing a happy situation that they are fairly close to being Kuposhan Mukt in terms of wasting. Mon. So I think this is something, Mon, you almost notice that minus 3 sigma and you have hardly any cases. Now this is the task, this is the goal where we need to reach, and which is where the importance of closest to the goalpost district comes in. Wasting, the lowest performing districts do present a disturbing picture, a fairly large number of cases which are below minus 3 standard deviation. You can see this area between the arrow and the red curve, and this is something which must be brought down to 0. So that has to be priority. So when we say Antyodaya is the priority, even within the districts which are not performing well, it is this group which needs to take precedence over all others. In severe wasting, we try to see whether districts which perform very well in severe wasting and those who perform very well in wasting, do the curves show any different pattern? But here you will see Ludhiana happens to be common to both. Here we have Kendrapada from Orissa rather than Puri and Jagatsinghpur, and here we have Lucknow. So you notice that in severe wasting case also, the task of moving closer or moving flush with the green curve is not that difficult. So if a district really decides, as they would say in Hindi, itni औकात तो होगी जिला प्रशासन की, and the civil society and everybody puts their efforts together, that we can actually take this to a wasting or severe wasting Mukt. In fact, severe wasting Mukt probably can be arrived at first and then wasting Mukt, but it depends on the infrastructure that one has, the effort one puts in. Best performing small states, severe wasting, we are again finding West Tripura and Azol. I think Azol is again showing a good performance here. So one could probably suggest, and it will not be very difficult to get it, Kuposhan Mukt. Now, why one keeps repeating this, getting it Kuposhan Mukt? You would notice that in the literacy campaign days, when Ernakulam, I recall, declared itself 100% literate, it fired everybody's imagination. So today also, a similar thing can happen. One Azwal here, one Kendrapada there, one Bhiwani here, one Kanyakumari there, can actually inspire or be role model for other neighbors. But again, lowest performing districts in severe wasting tell a similar story. You are seeing a large area below -3 standard deviation, which is not a happy situation to be in, because that shows a large incidence of severe wasting, which should be disturbing. This analysis you can do for any district. This analysis you can do for your own state and compare two districts, the best and the worst, or put the districts in a ascending or descending order of how much area is there below -3 standard deviation. We leave that thought with you. We will also do an interesting thing. What are some of the features of the best performing districts in terms of various indicators? Now, there has been a very interesting study by IFPRI after NFHS 4, they had brought it out, that between the best performing and the or lowest burden and the highest burden districts, they had identified 7-8 parameters which accounted for almost 70% of the variation. And these are not related to feeding the children beyond the age of 3. Most of them related to mother's characteristics, institutional characteristics. So we have picked up few parameters. Maternity care during pregnancy, that's one important thing. You remember when we are talking in terms of nutrition being one down, health being the opening pair, I think the pregnancy care becomes even one which precedes that. Other is child vaccination and vitamin A supplementation, and another is the child feeding practices. And what we want you to see and appreciate, I think that message is important. We'll also find out how the best and lowest performing districts are faring in terms of these indicators. So we have taken 3 best performing districts, 2 from large states, 1 from small state, averaged their value. We have done the same thing for 3 lowest performing districts. And there are 4 indicators: underweight, stunting, wasting, and severe wasting. And then let us see how the districts, what is the picture that the districts show. And you will notice here very clearly that in terms of women who are literate, in fact, years of schooling is probably even more important. Mothers who have at least 4 antenatal care, these are the 2 parameters where the differences are pretty stark. Luckily, when it comes to neonatal tetanus, I think the performance seems to be on par in underperforming districts as well. Then mothers who have consumed IFA tablets more than 180 days during pregnancy, this is very important gap, 19% versus 40%. Similarly, you see children who received postnatal care within 2 days of delivery. Now that becomes important. It is 86% in well-performing districts and about 67 in underperforming districts. Is it too difficult to bridge this gap between 67.4 and 86.2? We think not. We also go to certain performances, institutional births. You will see this very clearly that districts which are performing very well, the institutional births are upwards of 95%, and on the other hand, the low performing districts, it's somewhere around 74. Now, this is again one area where efforts can be made, and this 73 can be made 95 without too much of difficulty. Fully vaccinated children, we don't see a huge gap. So that's probably a happy situation. And similarly, vitamin A dose. So this is something which augurs well. Children under 3 years who benefited with the breastfeeding initiation within 1 hour of birth. So that is the colostrum consumption is important. There again, the gap is significant. And total children in the 6 to 23 age group, here you see everybody is performing badly. So the better performing districts are only 17 odd percent, and the worst performing districts are 11%. So one has to see if this parameter is attended to, can it give accelerated benefits to the better performing districts, or can it give accelerated benefit to the worst performing districts? I think time will tell, and this is something which we leave the viewers with the thought that how do we improve these parameters where we see underperformance. The journey for us begins now. It doesn't end with this Poshan Maah. We will continue to present similar analysis for the viewers and probably urge them to think differently. So therefore, you watch this space every week till the next Poshan month. Thank you very much.
Let me take you through the activities of IIT Bombay Nutrition Group this Poshan Maah of September 2022. As all of you know by now, that IIT Bombay Nutrition Group is a team of faculty, scholars, and practitioners who are committed to supporting efforts to tackle malnutrition in India. Our members are involved in several activities such as nutrition education and training, district planning and monitoring, data analytics, nutrient-rich product development, and implementation research. The work of our faculty, students, and fellows, both current fellows and alumni who are associated with the group, is fascinating. Therefore, we took this opportunity to present before the world the work of our team. One of the most popular engagements this Poshan Maah was a series of 15 episodes that were released on YouTube. Each episode featured 3 parts: work of faculty, work of current and former students and fellows, and a comparative review of NFHS 4 and NFHS 5 data at national and state level, or research presentation by our team members, or interesting documentaries that were produced by our team. The videos are promoted on social media handles as well. The idea behind this episodic series with 3 to 4 videos instead of just one or a single theme was that it was intended to provide the viewers with a quick overview of our work, of our analysis in an engaging manner, and more importantly, to break the monotony. Another important activity this Poshan Maah was a seminar on nutrition through life cycle, lifelong health and prevention of diseases by Dr. Rupal Dalal as part of the Sitara Technology and Development Seminar Series on the 28th of September at IIT Bombay. In this session, Professor Dalal discussed nutrition through the life cycle approach, human physiology, biochemistry, and basic metabolic functionaries, and how various nutrients are needed to run our human machinery efficiently and effectively and without any diseases. This seminar provided a good opportunity to highlight and discuss the important nutrition-related issues with students and participants. Finally, the Nutrition Shakti Healthy Cooking Competition. On the occasion of Poshan Maah, IIT Bombay Nutrition Group hosted the Nutrition Shakti Healthy Cooking Competition, where participants prepared and shared recipes, both vegetarian and non-vegetarian, that are nutritious, easy to prepare, and inexpensive. The recipe had to be prepared as per set guidelines. The competition was promoted through social media handles, and the contest was kept open to all. We received a good response from this competition. There were 4 food item categories and 2 prizes would be awarded in each category. The announcement of winners will be done. Thank you.